turning his back on number 10, the backroom boy who became more powerful, more famous than many who sat round the cabinet table. Back home tonight, Alistair Campbell having finally carried out his promise to his family to come home for good. Earlier,
my departure is related to the events that I've set out in my statement, and I'm not going to say anything about the Hutton inquiry because I don't think it's appropriate to do that. I leave because my family and I want me to leave at this time, and I leave with nothing but good memories of my time in Downing Street and my time working for the Prime Minister in opposition. Well, again, you can ask me the same question as many times as you like, but I'm not saying anything about the Hutton inquiry. People can make whatever judgment they like. All I've ever done, every day that I've worked for the Prime Minister, is do the job to the best of my ability, according to the values and principles that I hold, and according to the policy agenda that this government has. That is what has always guided me. And I think people sometimes underestimate the extent to which, if you're doing a job like this, and you're taking the pressures that you're taking, and you're working the hours that you work, you do it because you believe in it. And you don't believe in it because you might get a good headline here or a good news bulletin there. You do it because you believe in the change that you think the country wants from the people that it's elected. And the people it's elected are the Prime Minister and the ministers, and they're the people ultimately who make the decisions.
Forgive me, there'll be people watching and say he's at it again.
Well, people can say what they like, and you can be as cynical as you like about anything that I might say. I know what I stand for, and I know what I believe, and I know what I've done in this job, and I know what I will continue to believe in outside this job. Now, you know, frankly, you get so used to people questioning you, speculating about your motives and all the rest of it. I know what I stand for, I know what I believe, and I know that every day I've done this job, I've done it to the best of my ability according to those beliefs.
Perhaps in Parliament as well.
I'm not going to stand for Parliament. Politics has always been a passion in my life and always will be, and I will continue to take an interest in and be involved in politics in some shape or form. But how I do that, time will tell.
When do we see the diaries?
Well, that's again something you'll have to wait for. Thank you.
Not that long though.
What?
Not that long?
I think we said 6 questions and you're on to 12, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tonight at the paper he once wrote for, The Mirror, they're planning a fond, if somewhat hyped farewell to the man who taught the government to talk tabloid.
If he needed final proof his time was up, then this was it. The King of Spin had come to symbolise the sins of a government he did so much to create. At the Hutton inquiry, no longer shaping events, but in the eye of a storm he helped whip up.
And I tell you, until the BBC acknowledge that is a lie, I will keep banging on.
As he toured the TV studios, he'd shattered the first rule of his calling. He'd become the story. For 9 years he's watched over his boss, his friend, his ally. Now he exits the stage, leaving Mr. Blair to cope without his closest confidant.
He was the brains of the spin machine, Tony Blair was its heart, and as long as Tony Blair is in Downing Street and this government is in, I'm afraid this culture of spin is going to continue.
They were the odd couple, the committed Christian and the confirmed atheist, the public schoolboy and the tabloid journalist. He was a poacher who turned gamekeeper.
But you are cutting down on the number of lobby briefings you're giving?
How do you normally get interviews? You phone the press office and they say yes or no, and I'm saying no, okay? Bye.
Alistair Campbell's job let him witness history. Moments of history made him write some of its most memorable lines.
They regarded her as one of the people. She was the people's princess.
What I say to you now, as your queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart.
In shaping presentation, he shaped policy. He was powerful because he knew the Prime Minister's mind. Some joked, sometimes better than Mr. Blair himself.
The Prime Minister, as I said right at the outset, would never ever allow the Labour Party to play the race card.
New Labour has now turned to old Labour. Dave Hill, former party press chief, takes the number 10 job.
Well, the great thing in many ways is that David Hill is not Alistair Campbell and Alistair Campbell is not David Hill, so there will be a freshness.
Confrontational and colourful, he spun a tangled web. Whatever happens to his boss, suddenly Mr. Campbell has cut himself free. John.
Filming with Alistair Campbell, I discovered a side of him that's rarely seen. He was training to run the London Marathon in memory of a friend, John, and John's daughter Ellie, who both died from leukemia. During the intense build-up to war, he was also pounding the streets to raise thousands for research into leukemia.
Hold on.
He gave me a
breakdown that gave me the sort of inner strength that I've now got, because I mean, getting through it and sorting yourself out after it, added to then living through John's death and Ellie's death. I think the combination of those events does give you a huge strength.
As I accompanied him to a race his son was running in, I saw just how much the job ate into his time with his family, who was constantly interrupted by texts and phone calls.
Hello.
He was also always adept at avoiding awkward questions. For instance, I asked him about Cherie's friendship with Carol Kaplan, which had led her to have dealings with the con man Peter Foster.
I think that's exactly the same question about exactly the same story, so I don't have anything to add to the many millions of words that have been said about it.
But seriously, it must have made,
serious.
But it must have made a difference to the relationship between you, because you're having to deal with things which people hope is going to stay private and doesn't.
We are very close, and that's all I can say.
And I saw at first hand the passion of a lifelong Burnley supporter. After they scored, I decided to tackle him on his own aggressive tactics.
Try to bully, correspondents and editors into not running things and not saying things.
No, I regularly have tried to argue with people not to run things that aren't true.
And he wasn't worried then about how his reputation as a bully would affect life after Downing Street.
I don't think I'll ever be short of work.
That's certainly true, but as he leaves behind the high-pressure environment of Downing Street, one thing I know he's afraid of is being bored, so deciding what to do next will be difficult.